Today's guest is someone who knows how to push boundaries, and she was pushing the boundaries of digital back when YouTube was still the wild, wild west. Ronit Cohn, the CEO and founder of Cohn Talent Group, is an expert at connecting talent, fans, brands, and content with a super holistic strategy. Today, we talk about just how scary it can be starting your own business, no matter what your circumstances are, but how sometimes those circumstances are exactly what you need to drive you and your business to success. So let's get into it. Ronit, thank you so much for being here with me today. Can you give us a little bit, a little taste of your story?
Okay, my name is Ronit Cohn, and I have my own talent management company where I focus on digital first content creators. I spent the first decade of my career fully immersed and entrenched in the world of entertainment, working with the best of the best and learning from the best, and then serendipitously got introduced to the world of content creators back in 2011 and saw that that was the future and took a giant leap and have not looked back ever since.
I love that. You were an OG, because I feel like right around 2011, I think that was like YouTube was a very new thing. You've had an amazing career, and I really love just reading more about you and all the things that you've done. Can I brag about you a little bit here? I haven't, but Fight On, USC Marshall School of Business, and then you were at Fullscreen as the Vice President of Creator Partnerships, and then you worked for Michelle Phan as the president of her company.
Yeah, and manager.
And manager. And then before that, you were at Interscope. Mm-hmm. Holy cow, that's amazing. And I think I'd love to hear a bit about, people are afraid to make shifts sometimes, right? I would love to hear you're running your own company and have built this immensely successful business. Do you think that there's pieces of each of those roles that you've accumulated that you're using today?
Absolutely. And that was something I was really cognizant of from the time that, I started out in my career. Because I had this very idealized version of what my career would look like. And it would be, I'd start working at a big entertainment company, at the very bottom, work my way up, be loyal and stay with the company and, my entire career. And that's just not how it turned out. So I always felt in some ways sometimes self-conscious about the different moves I made, and sometimes early on in my career I made a lot of lateral moves. So it was really important to me as I looked back going into my next step forward that I took away skills or something or relationships that I felt could carry me, that I could carry into my next role. So that was something I was acutely aware of. And because my career progression was so diverse, it wasn't until I got introduced to the world of YouTubers that it clicked. And for the first time, I was like, wow, every single thing I've ever done in my career actually really matters for this type of work.
Wow.
And so it was a big aha moment. And I knew, even though there were no jobs per se for YouTubers at that time, or there was no roadmap of how do you take the number one YouTuber and cross her over into mainstream media or mainstream success. There was no roadmap. No one had done it.
Yeah.
But I knew I had all the tools inside of me from everything that I learned. That was the first time where I felt really good. I think I'm meant to be here.
I love that. Yeah, you were carving this path that had never been done before. And that was such an exciting time then, because there were a handful of these YouTubers back in 2011. You remember those conversations where it was you're either traditional entertainment or you live in this space. What have you seen in the last 15 years, right, in terms of that convergence that you just kind of mentioned, right? How have these two sides sort of started to play together and mingle together?
Back when I started pitching brands, sponsorship or video integration opportunities within YouTube content, they thought I was absolutely nuts.
Yeah.
But I was used to calling the CMO and starting from the top, and in some instances, got to stay at that high level and come up with really interesting marketing partnerships. I used that same strategy in the early days. However, the biggest thing that I think has changed is now there's a dedicated influencer person, and it's usually a person, not necessarily a team.
Yeah, sure.
And just a plethora of influencer agencies. And so there's just so many layers to it now. That's like the biggest change, just seeing that there's now infrastructure around influencer marketing when none of that existed when I first started out.
Yeah, it was interesting. Even today, we work with a very, very, very big YouTuber. And there is a big celebrity that this person has been wanting to get forever. And today we had a phone call with like the dedicated team at the studio that are committed to making these, digital plays, right, with these top YouTubers happen. And that didn't exist 4 or 5 years ago, right? It's like this specific celebrity would go and do the Tonight Show, and they would go and do the cover of Vogue or whatever it might be. And now there's this entire strategy. Traditional entertainment has finally come to realize the value. You are the expert on the creator economy, and I think I would love to have you share, how do you define the value of the creator economy, right? I think it's a term that just is being thrown around a lot, but what is it, and how do we measure its value?
The easiest way to measure its value is the fandom. They're essentially, in my mind, communities of fandom.
Yeah.
Around a person or persons or a theme, with content being the core product.
Yeah.
That's the way that I look at it. And I think that's also why I don't look at it as anything entirely new. It's just a different vehicle than how entertainment or media has always lived.
Yeah. Well, and I think that the rise of community, what we know as a following, it's like, what's their following, is actually their community, right? And I think I'd love to hear from your perspective, like from the creator side, what goes into building that community and being authentic to that community?
Absolutely. And that's the type of work that I love to dig into when I first start working with a client, is really getting to know who their brand is, who their audience is, and what kind of community that we can build and cultivate around them. And oftentimes creators think first and foremost about the content and not fan first.
Yeah.
And so I will almost always develop fan engagement ideas of this is what we should be doing, and this is how we should layer it into the content that we're going to be doing this year.
I love that.
A few of my clients that I signed in the last couple years, when I first signed them, I knew that they were ripe for a national tour. And when I first suggested it, they didn't say I was crazy, but they were wide-eyed, and they were like, well, we have so many other things that we need to be doing, because they were brand new.
Sure.
But they had come from another platform. So their channels were new, but they had been on YouTube for, about 6 years. And so it took about a year, to get them to that point where they were confident and to where they believed that they could do it. And we even tested it with, just a local meet and greet, which exceeded all of my expectations.
That's amazing.
And we just wrapped the tour, and all of them had the best time, and it was incredible. But that's just one example of how important it is to really nurture your fan base and to give them opportunities to not just interact with you, but also to interact with the community.
Yeah,
because they
with
have
each other.
Yeah. And a beautiful thing was, there was a long line waiting for the meet and greet, and it was great to see kids become friends with each other, and then the parents exchanging numbers at the end and whatnot. And I thought that was really special, because that could never happen if you just kept that relationship online.
Yeah. It's, like a concert, right? There's nothing, you can listen to an artist, all day long, but that being in that amphitheater or that stadium or whatever it is, I mean, you almost just put your arm around a stranger next to you, right? There's something that's bringing you together, and that is what is, in fact, creating the community. I want to talk a little bit about Well, there's two things I want to talk about. One is entrepreneurship. Like you said, you've had all these amazing jobs. You've had an amazing career. What made you want to go out on your own?
Almost every company I worked at had a very strong entrepreneurial spirit. And as much as that shaped who I was and the risks I would take, the idea of setting up my own business once I had 2 young children was, very scary. I think if I was in my 20s or if I didn't have kids, it would be a different story. But by that time, I already had a mortgage. I had 2 young children and a stack of bills to pay every month. And so this idea of, you only eat what you kill. And I don't tend to act with money first. I tend to act with people first. So I had to make a switch in my brain, which took a while because I'm very services oriented, not necessarily how can I make the most money this month. There was a learning curve to adapt and to untrain a lot of the behaviors that I had grown comfortable with navigating corporate culture all these years.
I think that is a big differentiation for people who work in that corporate world and then hop to freelance even, right? You just don't think about it. Did you always know maybe that you wanted to start your own thing? Or like when did you kind of start to get that itch, I guess?
Yeah, I like to say I grew up, meaning like the early part of my career and all my internship experience was during the digital disruption of the music industry. That had a huge impact on me. 3 of the companies I interned for during college, and these were big companies who were doing incredibly well, folded by the time I graduated. I remember there was one woman I interned for, and she reached out to me when I got my first job at 21, asking if I could help her find a job. And I thought that was crazy. People who were very successful, and then they kind of peaked, and then they just didn't have the same kind of influence or like their career kind of sunsetted, whether or not they chose to admit it or not. And I just thought I'd never want to be irrelevant. I always want to take my fate into my own hands, and corporations, companies, they're not loyal to their employees. And lived through so many layoffs and downsizing and mergers across all areas of entertainment. And it's even happening, today all the time. And so where I was right before I launched this company, I looked around, at the landscape, and there was so much changing in our world. And I actually took like a survey and I was like, which of these companies are going to be around 2 to 5 years from now? And I knew at that moment I'd rather bet on myself than bet on these companies. And so as nauseating as it was to make the plunge and to do it, I did it. It was probably the hardest step I think I had to take as a mom. And looking back, I wouldn't have had it, I think, any other way.
Well, and running a business it's wild. It's crazy, right? There's the ups, the downs. You always kind of have to be looking ahead, but yet remaining present. And so you have your clients, but then you have employees. It's just, it's all of the things. How have you found yourself sort of managing the uncertainty or the risk or sort of the growth, right, that comes with running your own business? Like any advice or anything you've learned in this journey?
When I started out, because I'm so services oriented and I'm always thinking about how could I help this person, and if I saw an opportunity where I could bring them a lot of value, that superseded everything. And that's not really a great way to drive a business forward. It's a great way to service and sign clients and keep them happy. And it really helped with making my entire business 100% referral based. But then as I looked around, I said, I'm letting them determine what my company looks like. And that doesn't make sense. So I'd say the hardest thing that I had to learn was to say no and to actually scale back my roster. And even though I had really great relationships with a lot of the people, I had to make some tough decisions so that I could grow my business in the way that I wanted to.
And I feel the same. And our businesses are very similar in that way, right? We both offer a service. It's not a product. And at the end of the day, when you offer a service, it's your time. Like that really is what it comes down to, right? And as a mom, like having kids shifted that for me a bit, right? I used to always, and I'm still very much always a yes person, right? But I do think there's a bit of a filter. There's like a second guessing now that's like, okay, is this worth me missing bedtime again tonight?
Right.
You know, those kinds of things. And I definitely want to talk a bit more about motherhood. But tell us like what, you know, you represent talent, right? And I think in the industry, you know, there's publicists, there's agents, there's managers, you know, there's marketing agents, right? There's all these people that represent talent. But I'd love to hear from you, like, what exactly is your corner of representation, right? And what is it that you do that you feel sets you apart from anyone else out there?
I have a unique approach to it. And what's kind of great is I started doing it before there were a lot of people doing it. So I just made up my own my own way of doing things. But there's a few key pillars, and it starts with personal brand strategy, career guidance and development, which I think is oftentimes overlooked, but the most important thing. And talent development is something else. So again, because I grew up within in the music business, like A&R and talent development was so critical back then. And then there's the very, you know, traditional or typical aspects of it, which is, you know, brand sales and partnerships, developing new revenue streams. There's marketing and fan engagement, business development. You know, sometimes I often act like a COO, kind of.
That makes sense.
Plugged into their business. Yeah. But a lot of it's also strategic oversight, but then it's also the nuts and bolts of, you know, campaign execution. And it's basically anything and everything that touches their life and their business.
Yeah, that makes sense. If you were to have a crystal ball, or if you were to see sort of what's coming ahead across this sort of sector of the industry?
Yeah, I think with the rise of shopping and how that's grown to be such a huge focus for the social platforms, it's brought up kind of a whole new wave of these shoppable creators who are essentially, you know, QVC spokespeople.
Yeah, totally.
So it's created this whole new segment of our industry that really didn't exist probably 2 years ago. I think there's going to be a lot more growth and focus in that area. Yeah. And then the part that I always think of, because it's just so highly saturated, just the creator landscape, with the amount of creators, it becomes much harder to become a superstar. And, you know, I remember when there was, I don't know, let's say 20 to 25 Mr. Beasts who were recognizable by name. There's a lot fewer of those creators who are hitting that massive scale and have become a household name. I'm interested to see how that shakes out. But that's also where I see an opportunity. I could go in there and help someone who's on the cusp of hitting that. That's when you definitely do need the right team around you. And you really need to be like, okay, I have this opportunity. How do I turn what is typically a 2-year shelf life into longevity?
Lifetime.
Exactly.
It's reflected the exact same, I think, in the traditional entertainment side too, right? You used to have these big superstars, and now I think they're just a little bit far and few between. There's a lot of big names, but fewer Oprahs and, you know, Beyoncés. And I think that is because accessibility, right? There, you know, there's just so much out there. There's so much to watch. There's so much to consume. And I think people feel more connected to people than ever because you're seeing what they eat, you know, what they watch, right? You're shopping what they shop. And I think that, you know, you have your people that you follow and you're kind of content with that a little bit. How do creators grow their audience, right? It's kind of that gentle dance of keeping your existing audience happy and sticking around, but then you also want to grow your audience.
Content strategy is a big part of that. Because you need to shift or expand the type of content that you're creating so that you can attract a new audience.
Yeah.
And, it's a matter of how do I age up my content as I get older while also not alienating the fan base that I work so hard to build.
Yeah. That alienation, like I want to talk a little bit about brand deals specifically, right? Because I think that some of them are done really, really well and some of them are done very poorly. And the audience sees like, well, this is a pen ad. Like, I don't, like, screw you. Why are you feeding me this ad, right? So I'd love your opinion and your point of view on how to do brand partnerships well.
I personally get really excited about that because I look at that as the biggest creative challenge. Because how do you deliver a set of either talking points or achieve certain marketing objectives that are laid out by an advertiser while also making it entertaining, organic, and interesting for a very discerning viewer? And the biggest risk is if it turns the viewers off, it really, really reflects negatively on the creator. So if it's not in the right hands, they can be very risky. But some of my clients just have this innate ability to just make something really cool, but also know how to weave in all of those technical either product attributes or things that the brand is looking for. And or even showing it, not even saying the word. A clever way around it is we can do VO, but what's incredible is they would come up with really visual ways. And I think because, again, they're creators, so they kind of interpret things visually. They would come up with things that achieved the talking points that a brand would want, but without actually saying a thing. Like, this level of work is what I've seen from like the highest level creative directors that I used to work with, and it would excite me. I think it's a great opportunity, and I think brands are so important to everything that creators do because they essentially fund like their business.
Every deal is different, but do you feel like there's a trend towards deals with more longevity, right? Or do you feel like we're still a bit in a world of one-offs?
We're still in the world of one-offs. There are a small number of brands who are looking to create longer-term partnerships with creators. But still, they really want to go slow and they want to test it out first. And sometimes when you do test something out, you don't really give it enough time to actually see the true value if you're looking at it purely from a 30-day metric viewing period, or you're not really doing the brand research or the brand studies to see if there was any brand lift. They're not actually employing those kind of techniques. It's just purely based on views, engagement, and comments. But what I see, because I get to meet the fans, and that's also part of the reason why I love creating these fan first events, is because I see firsthand who they are, what they like, what they're talking about, or also if they're DMing my clients. And so if we're hearing a lot about a particular brand that we promoted or a new product that we just launched, I get that actual real-time feedback from the fans, which, in many ways is the most important thing because they're talking about it.
Yeah, that's what you want. You want a conversation about it. You want it to be noticed. Everybody wants a viral moment, but then there are actual shifts in culture that happen because of things that are happening online, right? Or people are putting out online. How do you talk about those kinds of things with your clients?
When I think about their content strategy, they have their hero content, which is basically their bread and butter and how they make their living, an expression of who their brand is and who their audience is and where that intersects. And then there's the marketing of the content and the marketing of the brand that we're building with the creator. And I really look at trends as a way to attract a new audience, to help with content discoverability, to really help them stay relevant. So I don't really look at trends as the crux of what they should be doing, but it's something that we should be utilizing for relevance, audience growth, that kind of thing.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's like a healthy mix of both.
Yeah, and the trends change so fast.
Yeah, they do. They do.
So if you spend a lot of time trying to catch one trend, by the time you catch that wave, there's a new one.
Yeah, yeah.
One of my clients, these two brothers from Aruba, Gil and Jay Crows, they came to me because they jumped on this TikTok trend, and it led to them accidentally launching this brand new horror series that, has since gotten over 1.5 billion views.
Wow.
And it's great, but also the worry for me is like, how do we take that trend and now make something that people care about after the trend has died?
Sure.
Mm-hmm. And luckily for us, it's worked, but it's also something to be wary of.
Yeah.
You don't want to put all your eggs in a trend basket.
Sure.
If you use it strategically, it can give you a lift or help get you to another place, but then you got to jump onto the next rung of the ladder very quickly just to stay ahead.
What would be your advice to people who they're starting to get a following, they're creating, they're not sure, like just in terms of getting representation? At what point are you ready for that?
I think creators should get representation when there is so much interest in them from a business standpoint that it's becoming too difficult for them to manage themselves, or when the opportunities are things that they are not literate in and they don't feel like they know how to execute that or do that.
Yeah.
And they need guidance on navigating that type of deal.
Yeah. Yeah. Is there any one client or project or partnership or strategy that you feel the most proud of?
For me, because I've had so many wins with all my creators. One of them was able to buy a home, and that person told me I wouldn't be in this position. They were actually financially in debt when I began working with them, and was able to, in under 3 years, able to make a significant change in their business to where they could get a new car, a home, and have the dream life that they've always wanted for themselves. So having that impact on someone's personal life and having them feel like you helped me attain my dreams, that feels really good, and that goes way beyond just the work that we do day to day.
I'd love to hear a little bit about your experience as a mother and as an entrepreneur, and sort of what does that look like, and how do you feel about that, and how do you navigate that, and what might be advice for someone doing the same?
Yeah, be careful what you wish for. I always thought about my career as like my career is my life. Even when I was in high school, I couldn't wait to work.
Yeah, same.
And I never knew what kind of mom I would be. And I also just kind of let that happen. And I was like, we'll see what happens when I do have children, and we'll see. Am I going to want to stay at home? Am I going to want to continue working? I didn't have any role models in my life of working mothers. So it was uncharted territory. And I'd say the hardest thing for me was I always prioritized work. And then once I had kids, it became a struggle because it was really hard to untrain my brain from, well, this is what pays for the home. This is what pays for electricity, and this is important. And also with like wrestling with that time with the kids. But it did force me to be present, which was great. So the times that I was with them, I wasn't on my phone. I wasn't checking Facebook. And it was good because I think it really did force me to be present. It also forced me to be hyper efficient in all areas of my life.
Yeah.
So people laugh because they'll come to my house and they'll say, wow, you are so organized. I was not organized until I had kids and until I started my own business. I had to be super organized because I didn't have the extra 5 minutes to spare looking for something.
Totally. Yeah.
And so in some ways, like, it created these new parts of myself that I think are a strength or help me in my day to day.
Yeah.
But it's a journey, and I'm so different than who I was a year ago. But I'll tell you, the one constant is guilt. That never goes away, unfortunately.
It doesn't exist for me.
Guilt?
The guilt.
Oh,
yeah.
I'm so jealous.
I just never allowed myself to let that creep in. There will be moments that I feel sad, or bummed. Maybe I missed that thing at school, but then at the same time, when I am there, it's you're fully there, you're present, you make it special, you make those memories. Yeah, I think a lot of my friends talk about mom guilt, and I'm like, I don't ever let myself feel that way, and I don't know how, but
well, when you figure it out, bottle it
up and let you know.
I'll be your first customer.
Okay.
I'll try to work on that because that would be a lovely
well,
thing.
and maybe because mine are still so young, so they're not communicating to me yet, and I don't, right? Because I think like they're not saying, Mom, you didn't do this, so maybe that's why, right? But so, we'll stay in touch on this topic. I'll let you know if the guilt starts to creep in. It's not even compartmentalization, because actually I think your life as a mom and an entrepreneur is very fluid, right? You're kind of switching, you have to switch gears all the time. You give your ultimate very best in whatever moment, day, situation you're in, and that's all you can do.
Yeah.
I won't feel guilty about it.
I'll take that with me.
Okay.
That inspires me.
Yeah. And tell me, one last question that we love to ask our guests is, what brings you joy?
Bringing other people joy. Bringing people together and giving them an experience or an opportunity to connect, or to just be able to walk away feeling better than they did when they walk in.
Yeah.
That's been a mark in my life since I was young. I've always just wanted to spread joy and to make people laugh, or to just make them smile, and just spread kindness, and in even the most simplest of ways, or even in the most orchestrated, surprise, grandiose ways. I kind of like to do that across the board.
I love that. So tell us, where can we give us your website and your socials. Where can we find you and follow you and all those things?
So my social handle is just my name, Ronit Cohn, RonitCohn. I don't have a website at the moment, which is intentional, but I am working on launching my own project.
Ooh.
Which has taken a backseat to everything else.
Okay.
And so it may never ever happen. I don't know.
Can we get like a little sneak? Can we get a little sneak peek of what it could be?
It's something along the lines of taking everything that I've learned in this space and sharing it with others.
A book.
We'll see.
Ronit, thank you so much for being a guest on this podcast. I just many, many more hangs for us in the future.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to see the rest of your guests and all the amazing conversations that you're going to have.
Yeah, there's some fun stuff. And thank you, everyone, for listening to us. Please give us a follow at Cultivated Entertainment on all the social channels. And please subscribe to our YouTube channel where you can watch all the episodes. And send us an email. We want to hear from you. What did you love about today's episode? What do you want to hear more of? You can send us a note at sayhi@cultivatedent.com. And until next time, I'm your host, Jen Proctor. Bye.